So one day there was this man who decided that he wanted to go for a hike. He tried to find other people who would go on the hike with him, but he couldn't find anybody that wanted to do it on this particular day. So he set off on his own, and he hiked along this trail, and it brought him up to a place where he stood over this cliff that went down into this great valley. And as he stood on top of it, the view was beautiful, and he loved seeing what he was seeing as he looked out over the edge of this cliff. But as he did so, he lost his footing, and he fell, and he began to slide and go down the edge of the cliff. In desperation, he reached out his hands, and as luck would have it, he grabbed a hold of a branch that was jutted out the side of the cliff. Well, he grabbed a hold of that branch and he looked down. It was about 100 feet down, and he looked up, and he was at least 15, 20 feet up, and he knew that there was no way that he was going to be able to climb up. He also knew that his arm wasn't strong enough to hold him up there, and he was worried that that branch would begin to break. And so in desperation, he yelled out, "Help me, help me. Is there anyone up there who can help me?" And he was afraid because he knew that he hadn't seen anybody this whole day as he was hiking. "Help me, help me. Is there anyone up there who can help me?" Finally, in the midst of his scream, there was a voice that said, "Yes, I am here. I can help you." "Oh, good," said the man. "I am so glad. Please, just help me. If you can throw down a rope over the side of this cliff." The voice said, "Well, I don't have a rope." And the man said, well, look around, find a branch, find anything that you can lean over the side. I'm down here, I'm at least 20 feet down. Just find something that you can hold down over the side of the cliff so that I can be pulled back up." And the voice said, "Well, I don't see anything around here that I can hold down over the side of the cliff." And the man says, "Well, you've got to find something. You've got to help me." And the voice said, "Well, I can help you, but I need you to do one thing." And the man said, "Anything. Just tell me what you need me to do. I'm going to fall. I'm going to die. Help me." And the voice said, "Okay, what I need you to do is I need you to let go of the branch in your hand." And the man said, "What are you kidding me? Let go of the branch in my hand? That's the only thing that's keeping me alive." And the voice said, "If you want me to help you, you've got to let go of the branch in your hand." And the man said, "Well, this is crazy. Who is this anyway?" And the voice said, "Well, this is God." And he said, "God, like in the God?" And he says, "Yes, this is God, and I can help you, but you have to let go of the branch in your hand." He said, "This is God. You're the voice that's up there ready to help me. This is God." And the voice said, "Yes, but you need to let go of the branch in your hand." And he said, "Let me get this right. You're God, and you're up there, and you're ready to help me, but I need to let go of the branch in my hand." And the voice said, "Yes." The man looked up and he said, "Well, I'll tell you what. Is there anyone else up there?" You see, that's kind of how it is sometimes, isn't it? I mean, never really been in that situation, but I know there's been times where I have been praying, "God, help me, help me." And I'm not always willing to do what I think God is telling me to do. Let go of that branch in your hand. Now, the last devotional we did, I did it on fear. And we talked about the experience of the Hebrew people who were enslaved in Egypt. And when I looked at that story of fear, I wasn't talking about the Israelites' fear, at least not then. What I was talking about is the fear that was on the Pharaoh's heart. Because when he saw the Hebrew people, he was afraid that even with all the abundance he has, there wasn't going to be enough for him. We talked about this fear of scarcity and this myth of scarcity, even in the abundant world we live in. Well, that abundance is not only in material things, that abundance too is in the presence of God. And so when the Hebrew people cried out to God in the midst of their slavery, "Lord, help us," God helped. And first, he sent Moses. And then when Moses came, Moses brought the plagues that began to turn the heart of Pharaoh. First, it hardened his heart, but eventually the Pharaoh relented and the people were allowed to leave. They prayed for rescue, And God sent them Moses and then the plagues, and they began to make their way out away from Egypt. But then the very next thing that happens in the story is they find themselves standing right there in front of the Red Sea while Pharaoh, who had changed his mind, was pursuing them. Lord, help us! And God did. God parted the Red Sea, and the people walked across on dry land. And then as the army pursued them, once the people were safely on the other side, that water was closed up and the army was no more. Their prayer, Lord, help me. And the Lord said, okay, I will send you Moses. Things didn't get better. Lord, help us. And God sent the plagues. Lord, help us. God opened the Red Sea, and they found themselves on the other side, and there they were, now, without the pursuing army. And so, as that part of the story ends, we see the celebration of the people that God had got them this far. We see the song of Moses and the song of Miriam, and we see in chapter 15 the wonderful celebration that they now were no longer in that place of slavery and forced labor. But here's what happens next. Chapter 16 of Exodus. The whole congregation, the Israelites, set out from Elim, and Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which was between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after they had departed the land of Egypt. So here's what it is. Behind them is Egypt, and that place of slavery, that place of forced labor, that place where they were not sure if they would be put to death. That much they knew. They knew what was behind them. But as they looked forward, what they saw was a wilderness. It was unknown. What would that wilderness bring? What was it going to be like if they continued to go forward? What was it going to be like out there in that unknown wilderness? Well, this is what happened next. The whole congregation of the Israelites complained against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots and ate to our fill of bread. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger." Not 2 steps into the unknown, and they were complaining. You see, behind them was forced labor, was this fear that the Pharaoh would take their lives, was that place of uncertainty for their own being, that place where they had called for rescue. But also behind them was food and shelter, and they knew what was there. But in front of them was the unknown. And the unknown can sometimes even be more scary than the known, even when the known is not that great. I've been thinking about that this week, and here we are in the midst of this pandemic, and I know that many of us have prayed, maybe not with those same words, but we've been praying, Lord, help me. We've been praying for rescue. But sometimes I think our prayer has been, make us go back to where it was at least comfortable. Yeah, there were bad things that were going on, but at least take us back to that time, because at least we knew what was going on there. But you know what? I don't think God is wanting that for us. I really think God is wanting us to move into that unknown space, to trust God as we move into that unknown wilderness that is before us. Can we trust God's rescue into that unknown place? Can we trust that even though we have seen God rescue us time and time again and bring blessing upon us, can we trust God with what's in front of us? A lot of us want to go back. We want to go back to an easier time. We want to go back to when we at least knew what was going on. But I don't think God's rescue has anything to do with going back. I think it's about moving forward into what we do not yet know. That's how rescue often works for God. And my hope and my prayer is that as we begin to consider what comes next, we would find ourselves being able to trust the rescue and the promise of God as we move forward into a place that we do not yet understand. Can we trust God in the wilderness? Can we trust God in the unknown? Next time we're going to talk a little bit more about what happens in that unknown, but I want you to think about that this week. That's what I'm going to try to think about this week. Do I trust God's rescue, even if he calls me to let go of the branch in my hand, to move forward into the unknown wilderness?